G20 is probably the most powerful organization in the whole world. When it comes to the climate, G20 have spoken about the climate change being the most important and most pertinent problem of our century. But G20 has a bit of a tradition of having big words, but not so much of the actions. Hi, here is Markku Wilenius, the traveling futurist. Did you know that G20 is probably the most powerful organization in the whole world? G20 was formed a little bit over 20 years ago by the G7 countries, who at that time wanted to expand their exposure to all continents of the globe. So G20 is essentially the world's richest countries spread in all the continents of the world, except maybe Antarctica. Now, the point of G20 is to give to the world advice on financial matters. And that's why it is being inhabited by the ministers of economy in respective countries. Also, in the meetings, there are always the central bankers that are participating there. So we have countries, not only the US, not only Japan, but also the countries like Brazil, South Africa, and Saudi Arabia. Obviously also some of the European countries as well. And European Union as the only one that representing the League of Countries. Now, why I'm saying is that the G20 is the most powerful organization in the world is just simply based on the fact that even if it only gives advice, its voice is large. Because those countries that are participating in G20, they represent something like 85% of the global GDP, but also that they represent a lot of those carbon emissions that are currently being emitted on an annual basis. So it's something like 70-75% of the emissions. So when it comes to the relationship between G20 and what they can do with the climate, they actually could do a lot. Their voice should count a lot. But G20 has a bit of a tradition of having big words, but not so much of the actions. But there is one big exception, and that is what happened right after the financial crisis started to escalate back in 2008. Quite soon after the crisis has got to the deepest point, G20 was able to draw a plan that helped the world economy to stabilize by investing some $1 trillion to those kinds of operations that help the economy to calm down and sort of recapture its pace after this dramatic downfall of some financial houses and the overall financial economy of the world. So that event showed that G20 is actually potentially very, very powerful organization. Now, when it comes to the climate, G20 countries have spoken about the climate change being the most important and most pertinent problem of our century, which by itself should show some dedication to the issue. Now, before there was the meeting of climate change convention parties in 2021 in Glasgow, which was considered to be kind of a landmark conference. There was before that a G20 conference. And there was a lot of hope before that conference. The G20 countries would have committed to be the leaders in deciding how we actually get down the emissions on the global basis and how we start to tie in and sequestrate the carbon to the ground. But G20 somewhat failed in doing that. Moreover, over the course of the years when we went through the pandemic times, G20 did not react on the fact that almost 1/3 of the subsidies to help economies to deal with a pandemic went to those kind of sources which were very carbon intensive, meaning coal, oil and gas industries. So this commitment of G20 countries, in fact, has not been such a great for climate change. Yet, they could be potentially an organization that could clearly make the difference in the way we globally deal with the climate change. Because you know, this UN-based process, which is called the Conference of the Parties, that has been going on now for more than 25 years. It is a slow process. Everybody has to agree, and there is always all kinds of bargaining. G20 could be much more effective in dealing with the issues and sending much more clearer signals what to do, and even the commitments as well. And what I think what G20 should actually be doing is that, first of all, they should look after that the subsidies of the world, which still currently go against the tide of trying to do something with the climate change. Whether they are agricultural subsidies for industries, that G20 should give a clear signal that we should gear those subsidies towards supporting the greening of economies and tying down and cutting off those harmful greenhouse gas emissions. Now that we start to see how far actually climate change is in terms of how much our weather patterns are already changing, it should be a very acute issue actually to deal with. And it would not be only for the interest of environment and climate, but it will also be interest for the economy, because we are coming to see very clearly that the new economy, new cleaner economy we should be building on this earth is the biggest opportunity for economies to grow. And these G20 countries, these ministers of economy and finance should realize this, that this is indeed the type of opportunity that needs to be tackled, and give less attention to those incumbent industries that are defending their privileges and preventing this transformation that is needed to happen. If those more or less perverse subsidies would be changed to be the tool for the good and for the future, that would give a huge impetus also for the overall economies in all parts of the world to start to get a very different kind of speed when it comes to finding solutions to climate change and act on climate change on the global level. As I said in the beginning, I believe that there is no other organization that is more powerful, that has more leverage than G20 to actually do that. So let us hope that G20 itself realize how much they can actually do that and do the favor for their countries, the economies, as well as doing the favor for the environment and climate on which we ultimately all depend on. So subscribe to my channel, share this video with your friends, and look for the related videos. And please give your own response. What do you think? How G20 could work for the better climate? See you.